So now with our validation and top dialog completed, we can apply our Ajax caller to our form wrapper. Let's open our wrapper file, and right before this export default, we are going to import our Ajax caller from, and it's going to go 2 levels up, mixins and Ajax caller. Now we need to make sure that this mixin is available. So we use mixins property, and within the array, we put this instance of the Ajax caller. Okay, now if we scroll down to our make call method, because this is what's going to be triggered once all validation has passed. And the first thing we are going to do here is to clear any outstanding top dialog. So if there's any top dialog showing at the moment, we need to clear it up first. So event bus fire event called clear top dialog, and that will hide any dialogs that might be still showing. Then we are going to make our Ajax call. So this make Ajax call, and the method for the successful call will be called call successful, and for the failure will be this call failed. We don't have our call successful method yet, so let's quickly create it. For the time being, let's just leave it as a method stub. And for our call failed, which we already have, what I want to do is stop processing, because when we're making this Ajax call, if we just open this Ajax caller, you'll see we start processing Ajax call. And what it does is basically sets this processing flag to true. When it stops, it sets it to false. So what I want to do is to make sure that before we actually show any error, we know that the response has been sent back from the server. I want to stop this processing. So this stop processing Ajax call. That's what I want to send as a callback. And looking back at this show error, you'll see the callback is being called before anything else is being processed from within this error handler. Okay, so now inside of the call successful, what I want to do is use the try and catch statement. So catch, and it will catch an error, and we will catch the error that will represent the method that does not exist on the instance of another object that we will create in just a moment. So what I'm going to do when we get this error is to display the error message. So error handler, and we're going to show error, and the error will have a message saying invalid form behavior. And after this, we are also going to stop processing Ajax call. So this stop processing Ajax call. Now within the try block, what I'm going to do is to use the new object called behavior, a new class rather, and then we are going to call the method specified by the property behavior. And let's just scroll up quickly. There we go. This is our method. It's with EU. Depending on where you are, you might be using VIOR or VIOUR. I'm using VIOUR, so I just need to obviously correct this. And then we are going to pass this instance, so instance of this form wrapper, as well as the response that we are going to receive from the server. And let's just pass this response actually here as an argument. So response, there we go. Now, one thing about this, we may specify our behavior. If we scroll up to the top, you'll see our behavior is optional, or we may actually return the behavior from the server with the response. Because sometimes you may have behavior set dynamically depending on what sort of data you are submitting. You may want to reload the page, you may want to redirect the user, so you don't necessarily know upfront what sort of behavior you want the form to perform after the successful submission. So what we're going to do is check if this behavior is available. So this behavior then is behavior. Otherwise, we are going to get the behavior from the response. So response, data we need to access, and then behavior property on this response. Okay, now we don't have this behavior obviously yet, so let's quickly save this file and scroll up to the top. We are going to import it, behavior, import behavior from, and it's going to be from the current directory, and the file will be called behavior as well. So under the form directory, let's create a new JavaScript file called behavior. And here what we are going to start with is going to be export default class behavior. And we are going to have just 4 static methods to start with. You can add as many as you want later on, depending on what sort of behavior you expect the form to perform. Static, first one will be confirm with dialog and reset, which there we go, which will display the confirmation dialog and reset the form. So form and then response as the second argument. And here what I'm going to start with is use form and call stop processing Ajax call. Then I want to reset the form, so form reset method, which we don't have yet. So let's quickly open our wrapper, and after our initialize, let's just quickly add the methods tab, reset, and that's going to be it for now. We will work on the implementation a little bit later on. So if we save this, back to our behavior class, and here after all this has been done, what we want to do is display the dialog. So event bus fire, and we're going for top alert. With this top alert, we send an object saying that the ID will be form group we're going to use for this, and message will come from the response. So response data message. So that's our first method, first behavior. Then the next one will be simple redirect. So static redirect, and it will also take form and response. And we are going to use window object location on it, and then href property will set to response data, and with the response we are going to get the URL where we want to actually redirect the user. The next one will be reload. Sometimes we want to reload the page, so static reload. This one won't take any arguments, even though we are going to be technically passing these arguments to each call of any method on this class, but we don't need anything, so we're just not gonna put anything here. Window location and just reload with true to make sure we get the fresh copy of a page. Now sometimes you may want the form to do nothing after submission, so let's create a method for this. Static again, it's going to be called sleep, and we will take the instance of the form. What's going to happen, the only thing we're going to do is basically stop processing Ajax call. So form stop processing Ajax call. And that's all the methods that I'm going to be creating here. But again, if you want anything else, add them, make sure that obviously the form does what you want it to do. So we can now save and close this file. One last thing within the wrapper, we still haven't added the computed property request data. So computed, and here we're going to add the method called request data, which will return whatever we want to send with the request. And we will take this fields, because they will contain all the data that we want to submit to the server. Okay, now if we save everything and recompile the assets, and npm run dev, and once everything has compiled, let's go back to our editor, because what I want to show you is, first of all, if we go to app, HTTP controllers and open our main controller, you'll see that I've already prepared the method to handle our request. Now, if we are running unit test, I don't want to sleep for 3 seconds, but if we are submitting the form at the moment just to show the processing functionality, I've set it to sleep for 3 seconds so you can see the button processing and that sort of things. Obviously we don't have this functionality yet, but this will be added later on. So we sleep for 3 seconds and then we return the response in a JSON format, with behavior specified as confirm with dialog and reset, and the message will be your request has been processed successfully. So without actually adding anything to our form, if we just open our views, then main and index.blade.php, we won't be adding any behavior to it. It should take the behavior from the response. So let's open our browser and let's give it a try. So let's refresh the page and let's open the console. We only are interested in Ajax calls, so let's just select this XHR, under the network tab. If we hit submit without filling anything in, you can see no AJAX call has been made. Let's now fill it in and hit submit, and we did make a call, but we still get the error. 422 stands for unprocessable entity, which means some errors in the input. And as you can see, we've got quite a few, because when I prepared the exercise files for this course, I've already put all of the fields that we will later on add to this form. So I need to comment quite a few of those validation rules. So let's go back to the editor. Let's open our store main request file. If we go to app, we have controls, there we go, requests are here, and store main request is this one. We don't have title at the moment, we only have first name and last name, so let's comment these other ones. So title and everything after last name also can be commented. Save it, and let's try and submit the form right now. And we got the response, there we go. Your request has been processed successfully, so the dialog is there. We don't reset the form yet because reset is only a stub method at the moment, doesn't have any implementation, but as you can see, the response from the server came exactly as we've set it. So now let's try and remove this response from within the controller. Let's just comment it for now, and let's change it to actually one that is specified as a property on the form wrapper. So it's going to be behavior, and let's say we want to redirect user summary. So redirect, we want this sort of behavior. And now obviously, because we are using redirect, we need to, with the response, provide the URL when we want the user to be redirected. So URL property, and we are going to send them to https ssdtutorials.com. Okay, if we save it, back to the browser, let's refresh, let's again fill in all the data, submit, and after 3 seconds, wait, we should get the response and be redirected to SSD tutorials. Okay, so let's now do some cleanup before we wrap up. Let's just remove this URL and enable this behavior. In the response, we can save and close this file. I'm going to leave this request like this for the time being. When we add these fields later on, we're going to re-enable this validation. On the wrapper, there's nothing else for the time being. And here, let's remove this behavior. Now, one thing you may have probably noticed is that the form has submitted the request to the server knowing which route to take, which endpoint should it submit the form to, even though we didn't specify this. And this is because this specific form, to access this main controller, is actually going through the route which is the same as the homepage, so without anything in a Slack. Okay, if we open our routes and web.php, you'll see this is the endpoint. So it's just the / after the domain name to access this store method on the main controller. Now, that's not always going to be the case, of course. So what we need to do, if we open our form wrapper, you know that we are now using this AJAX caller. So let's open this AJAX caller and see what it has. It has the action property. If we specify the action property, this is where the request is going to be sent. So let's add this action property to our form wrapper. So action, and let's specify strictly that we want to send this request to root. In Laravel, we can use root helper and specify that we want it to go to main store. So now we strictly know that this is where we want it to be sent, because obviously that's not always going to be the case. We're not going to have just one route for all the requests. And now if we try the same thing again, we should, if we just go back to our form, and if we open the console again, just to see where it goes, let's just fill it in. Click on submit. Now we are back to the dialog. Obviously, you can see the form has been submitted to the same route. So it's still / after the domain name. And we have the dialog obviously displayed. After a few seconds, it disappears. So everything works as expected. We are now ready to move to the next video.